We are going to cover section 1-6, relations and functions, learning targets, identify the domain and range of relations and functions, and determine whether the relation is a function. So first, a few definitions. Relations. It's a pairing of input values with output values. So any kind of pairing of input values and output values, for instance, items in a store and their price, or students in a class and grades, those are all relations. A set of ordered pairs x, y, so in math we often think of relations as a set of ordered pairs, x and y. X is your input value and y is your output value. Domain is just the set of possible input values for a relation. So for each relation, the domain is likely going to be different. So items in a store and price, your domain is going to be all the items in the store. Students in a class and their grade, domain is each student or all the students in the class. Range then is your set of possible output values. So it would be price for items in the store, for the items in the store price relation, and grades for the students in a class grades relation. So input, domain, and one way it might be easy to remember is input values and output values are in alphabetical order. For instance, input starts with an I, output starts with an O. These are also in alphabetical order. So domain then is going to go with input, range is going to go with output, and X and Y are also in alphabetical order. So these all belong together and these all belong together. One of the problems I see students struggle with is which is domain and which is range. So here's a mapping diagram. You have is your one input value, and it has three possible output values, A, B, or C. And so your ordered pairs would look like, notice this is like roster notation for our sets. Each item or each element in your set is an ordered pair of your input and output values. All right, so give the domain and range for each relation. So the domain is just going to be each input value, which is the first item in the ordered pair. And then your range is going to be the second item in your ordered pair. And you can, since it's a finite set, you can give your domain and range in roster notation. Just list each item separately. Okay, this would be one for you to try. You give the domain and range for that relation. All right, suppose you're told that a person entered a word into a text message using the numbers 6, 2, 8, and 4 on a cell phone. It's going to be difficult to figure out what word that person entered because each number has three possible letters associated with it. So for 6, it's M, N, and O. 2 is A, B, and C, and 8, T, U, V, 4, G, H, I. So you can see each input value has multiple output values. However, if I said they entered the word math into the text message, you know exactly what numbers they pressed. Because for the letter M, there's only one number associated with it. That's 6. Same with A, T, and H. So you can see the difference between telling you which numbers versus which letters. And that defines the difference between what is a function and what is not a function. So a function, this is the definition, is a relation in which the first coordinate is never repeated. So you can see this is vague. You can't really figure out your output value from your input value. So that means this is not a function. A function means you can, for each input value, you can figure out what your output value should be. And in this case, that means this is a function. All right, so examples of functions, not functions. Not a function because for the input value 2 we have multiple possible output values. This is a function because for each input value I know exactly what the output value is. And for a function you can have the same output value for multiple inputs. You just can't have it the other way around. So it's a little bit confusing, but you have to think, for an input value, do I know exactly what that output value is? If so, then it's a function. Okay, so we're going to look at some relations to see if we can figure out whether they're functions. Items in a store to their prices on a certain date. So if I go into the store today and I pick up a banana, are there multiple possible prices, or do I know exactly what the price is? And I guess I should backtrack a little bit. First of all, you want to figure out what the input and output value is. So items is going to be our input, prices is going to be our output. And I would, yes, if you had multiple possible prices for an item, it would get very confusing. And we're not talking about if you have a discount card, so it's people with and without discount cards or whatever. For me, there is only one price that I'm going to be charged for an item on a certain date. So this is a function. Types of fruits to their colors. All right, so if I have an apple, can I map it exactly to one color? And the answer is no. There are red apples, there are green apples, there are yellow apples. So since there are multiple, and again, fruits is your input, colors is your output, the answer is going to be no to this. All right, I would like you to try these, figure out whether you think these are functions or not. Another way to tell whether you have a function if all you have is a graph is the vertical line test. So you can use the vertical line test to determine whether the relation's a function. How does it work? You draw vertical lines down the graph. If at any point it only passes through one point on the graph, then it is a function. If you draw a vertical line and at some place in the graph it touches more than one point, then it's not, doesn't pass the test and it's not a function. So here's an example. If I draw vertical lines, you can see it's never going to go through more than one point on that graph. So this is a function. Oh, this actually has some stuff left over on it. Okay, on this one, obviously, any particular line, vertical line, is going to touch 2 points. So this is not a function. So that's another way to figure out whether you have a function or not. Last one. Again, even though these ends look like you might be able to touch more than one point, you don't, because they are slowly changing their horizontal and vertical coordinates at each step in time. So this is also a function. All right, that concludes the lesson on relations. Here is the homework. There's also a new web activity. Bring questions to class.